All right, welcome back. Today we're going to look at finding coterminal angles. So let's start with an original angle here. So maybe if I turn my pen on here, maybe I have an angle like this, and let's say it's 30 degrees. And we want to find an angle that's coterminal with this angle, right? So its ending ray, its terminal ray, is going to be in the same spot. And we could do this a couple ways. So let's go in the counterclockwise position, right? The positive direction. So if I go all the way around, right, back to where I was, well, this is a coterminal angle, right? It ended in the same spot. So, well, how much if I went an additional 360 degrees? That's pretty easy, right? Add those two. And now I have a positive coterminal angle that's 390 degrees, right? They end in that same position. It's a 30-degree angle with our positive axis here. We can go the opposite way. Maybe we'll use red. We like red for negatives. Instead, how about I go the opposite direction, right? Clockwise is the negative direction. Well, I go all the way around until I get to that 30 degrees left. Well, what would that be? Well, 360 minus 30 is 330. Right, so if I go negative 330 degrees, that is a negative coterminal angle. And are there just one positive coterminal angle and one negative coterminal angle? No, they're infinites, right? If I went again around in the positive direction and I went to another 360 and another 360, right? I can have infinite positive coterminal angles, same with negative coterminal angles. Just subtract 360. So when you see questions about coterminal angles, really, all you're doing is just adding 360 or subtracting 360. And in radian land, well, that would be adding 2 pi or subtracting 2 pi. So let's do a couple of these examples here. So again, this says find two angles, one positive and one negative, that are coterminal with the given angles. All right, let's do two first, just it's a little easier to draw, and then we can kind of take some shortcuts. So if I have a horrible axis here, and if I go negative 90 degrees, and again, remember negative, I start on my positive axis here, is in the clockwise direction. So negative 90, I'm going to go like that, right? So my coterminal angle is here. That's negative 90 degrees, right, that we traveled. Well, if I go visually, I can kind of see this. If I want to go all the way around and get back to there, right, if I go all the way around and get back to here, this is a positive coterminal angle, so I'm going to add negative 90. Oh, actually, I went in the negative direction. This is going to be a negative coterminal angle. So if I have negative 90 and subtract 360, and it's a little easier just to come off and add to the side. And you can probably do this in your head, but if you can't, I like to just take it nice and slow, and I have 450, and again, we were going in that negative direction, right? So negative 90 plus a negative 360, I have negative 450 degrees is a negative coterminal angle. And now let's get a positive coterminal angle. So if instead I go in the positive direction, I go all the way, oops, I almost missed my angle, all the way around, and so that I have a positive coterminal angle, well, what's that? You can probably just look, I went 90, 180, 270, but even if you couldn't, right, our shortcut here in all these questions with coterminal angles is we're really just adding or subtracting 360 degrees, right? So even though you can see that's 270 degrees, if you look at our graph and you're getting comfortable with the unit circle, well, maybe you're not that comfortable yet. Well, so take your negative 90, right, and add 360. And if you did that on your calculator, if you just quickly did it out like I did there, right, we get positive 270 degrees. And so I really want to stress that idea of visually, we can always draw it, but sometimes drawing, for example, 600 degrees and going around more than once kind of starts to get sloppy. So it's not always helpful to visualize it and say, okay, well, I'm going to go around once, and there's 360, and there's 450, and I'm going to keep going around till I get, let's see, 360 and 360, 720. So, right, this is just going to, and maybe it's even bigger. For 600 we could handle, but maybe I'm going to 900 and 1080, and I keep going around. This kind of looks a little silly. So eventually, maybe drawing, especially with the larger numbers, isn't as helpful. That's when it helps to have the ideas in our head where, all right, if I want a positive coterminal angle, I can just add and subtract 360. So if I subtract 360, I could also add 360, right? This is also, like we said earlier, we can have a bunch of positive and negative coterminal angles, right? An infinite amount, really, right? So if I add these, I get 960. Again, did I really need to do this? Probably not, right? 960, that's one positive coterminal angle. Well, here's another one too, right? If I'm subtracting over here, and I'm going to make sure I do my math correctly, right? I get 240 degrees, right? Don't, just because you subtracted 360 or 2 pi, don't just assume this is a negative coterminal angle because you subtracted. Do you see a negative angle? I don't. This is a positive angle, right? 240. So I'm going to have to do it once more, subtract 360 one more time. So I'm going to do it by hand here just so I can see what's going on. 6 minus 4 is 2, 3 minus 2 is 1, right? This is going to be, if I subtract 360, I'm going to get negative 120 degrees, right? That's the first time I get a negative coterminal angle. So just be careful. Sometimes you might have to subtract more than once, or if it's a large negative, maybe we're going to have to add more than once to get to the positive numbers. But these are all the same angle, right? They're all going to have that same terminal angle. Let's do 2 more and make sure we have it, and we'll use our radians. 2 pi over 3, right? And this is in our unit circle, so, or at least it's within one turn all the way around, so it might be a little easier to draw. Well, here's pi over 3, 2 pi over 3 is over here. Maybe it looks like this, right? So if I go 2 pi over 3, that's what my beginning angle looks like. Well, do what we did before. I don't have to try to eyeball it and think of, well, what's 2 pi plus 2 pi over 3? Let's do the math out. So I'm going to have 2 pi over 3, and I'm going to add not 360, but the radian equivalent of 2 pi. And this is where our fraction skills come into handy, right? Fractions are our friends. Can I add this in the beginning? Hopefully everyone's screaming no, right? I don't have a common denominator yet. So let's make a common denominator. I'm going to multiply by 3, top and bottom. And if you're saying this is too easy for me, skip ahead, right? I just want to make sure everyone has this. So now we can add, right? We have our common denominators, and we get 8 pi over 3. That's our positive coterminal angle. Let's do the opposite now. Let's subtract 2 pi. So I have 2 pi over 3 that I started with, right? And now we're going to go the opposite direction. So I'm going to subtract 2 pi. And just like before, I can't subtract yet. So I'm going to multiply by 3 top and bottom and get this same thing here. 2 pi minus 6 pi this time, right? Over 3, right? Same as last time. Well, what do I get? Well, 2 minus 6, I get negative 4 pi over 3. Here's one negative coterminal angle. Here's a positive coterminal angle. And if we do one last example, I have negative 5 pi over 4. And so we could sketch this out too. Might be more helpful just to start adding, but just in case, let's see. And maybe we'll break this into quarters to try to make it as least sloppy as we can. So here's 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, 5/4, right? So, and let me change my color here. So our angle looks like this, right? And here's our terminal ray. And let's see what our coterminal angles are. So I have negative 5 pi over 4. And just like before, we're going to either add or subtract 2 pi. And don't start adding until we have common denominators. Let's multiply by 4 top and bottom. I have negative 5 pi over 4 plus, well, 2 times 4 is 8 pi over 4. All right, now we can add, right? We have our common denominators. Negative 5 plus 8 is a positive 3 pi, don't forget your pi, over 4. Great. And visually we could see this too, right? We can see if I go 1/4, 2/4, 3/4 pi, right? 3 pi over 4, that's in that same, it has that same terminal ray. And let's do our negative angle. It's a little weird that I'm using green for positive and red for, or vice versa, red for positive and green for negative. Let's add 2 pi. Instead of adding 2 pi, I'm going to add our denominator version that we've already changed, right? So that's 8 pi over 4, so I can go ahead and add. And I've already made a mistake. We said we want a negative coterminal angle this time. So let's subtract, right, instead of add like we did last time. Well, negative 5 minus 8, that's going to be negative 13 pi over 4. And there you go. So that's how you find some examples of finding coterminal angles. Hope this helped. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe to After School Extra Help. Also, leave a comment if you'd like more examples, or if you want another topic to be covered.